The Galactic Empire was a name spoken in whispers across countless star systems. Their fleets were said to be invincible, their technology light years ahead of anything the galaxy had ever seen. For centuries, they had conquered world after world, crushing civilizations that dared to oppose them. Now their sights were set on Earth, a small blue planet that orbited a star in a corner of the universe. Earth's inhabitants, humans, had never faced a force like this before. They had no idea what awaited them. One day, the calm of Earth's skies was shattered. Massive ships appeared in orbit, their shapes strange and ominous. The humans had never seen anything like it. The ships blotted out the sun, casting shadows over the entire planet. The Empire had arrived, and they made their intentions clear within hours. A message was broadcast across all human communication networks, a warning that struck fear into the hearts of every living person. The voice that spoke was cold, distant, and filled with the arrogance of a conqueror. This is the Galactic Empire. Your planet has been selected for annexation. Surrender now, or face total annihilation. Resistance is futile. The Empire's message was simple and terrifying. The people of Earth, who had always considered themselves a peaceful species, had never experienced anything like this. The news spread quickly. The Empire was coming, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Humanity was unprepared. They had advanced technology, yes, but nothing compared to the Empire's ships, weapons, and fleets. The planet's leaders convened in an emergency meeting. Military commanders, scientists, diplomats, and civilians all gathered to discuss how they would respond. The situation was dire. Some called for immediate surrender, hoping that it would save lives. Others argued for a resistance, even if it meant certain destruction. After hours of heated debate, a decision was made. Humanity would not give in. They would fight, no matter how impossible the odds. One leader, standing before the world's cameras, addressed the Empire in a way no one expected. "We warn you to run," they said. "If you do not, we will show you what humanity is capable of." The message was short, simple, and clear. It was not a plea for mercy, nor a threat of retaliation. It was a declaration of defiance, a bold statement that humanity would not be crushed without a fight. Across the globe, the human spirit was ignited. People who had never considered themselves warriors now felt a deep sense of purpose. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, and civilians all began to work together, knowing that the future of their world depended on their collective efforts. They might not have the advanced technology of the Empire, but they had something far more powerful: their will to survive. As the Empire's ships loomed over the planet, their commanders chuckled in disbelief. They had dealt with species far more advanced than humanity. They thought the humans would tremble at the sight of their fleet, bow down in fear, and surrender without a second thought. But the humans did not cower. They stood tall, united in the face of a threat that seemed unbeatable. The first strike came from the Empire's drones. Swarms of sleek, metallic machines descended from the sky, armed with devastating weaponry designed to wipe out cities in an instant. But instead of retreating or hiding, the humans fought back. They used every scrap of technology they could find, from ancient military equipment to newly invented devices, to defend themselves. It wasn't much, but it was a start. They showed the Empire that they would not go down quietly. The drones were fast, but the humans were clever. They had no choice but to rely on their ingenuity. It was their greatest strength. The Empire's advanced systems couldn't predict human resourcefulness, the ability to adapt and think outside the box. Humans were not bound by rigid protocols. They were unpredictable, and that unpredictability gave them an edge. By the time the Empire sent down its ground forces, it was already clear that this would not be the easy conquest they had planned. The humans were not simply surrendering. They were fighting back with everything they had, and they were doing it with a passion the Empire had never seen before. The first few skirmishes between the Empire's forces and humanity's defenders were nothing more than small battles, but they sent a message. Earth was not going to fall without a fight. The Empire's commanders were baffled. They had expected to see panic, fear, and surrender. Instead, they were met with courage, determination, and defiance. This was not what they had planned for. Earth was supposed to be a quick and easy conquest, but it seemed the humans had other ideas. And so, the war began. In that first moment of resistance, humanity showed the Empire what it had underestimated. It wasn't just about technology or weapons. It was about the human spirit, the will to fight, and the courage to stand up against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. The message had been sent. The Empire might have thought they were invincible, but they were about to learn a harsh lesson. Humanity would not be so easily conquered. And they would never give up. The Empire's ships hovered above Earth like shadows, casting an eerie gloom over the planet. They had already sent their drones to strike the cities, and many thought that the end was near. Earth's defenses, small in comparison to the vast might of the Empire, seemed utterly powerless. Yet, the humans refused to give in. They were determined to show the invaders something the Empire had not prepared for. The first strike against the drones was nothing short of surprising. While the drones came down in waves, firing energy blasts that shattered buildings and caused massive destruction, humanity fought back using what they had. The humans may not have had the advanced technology of the Empire, but they were resilient, and their ingenuity was unmatched. A small group of soldiers in one city had managed to hijack an old communications satellite and reprogram it to emit a signal that interfered with the drone's targeting systems. The drones, which were designed to locate targets with perfect accuracy, suddenly found themselves unable to lock onto anything. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it was enough to buy time. The people of Earth saw the news flash across their screens. Humans had fought back. It was a small victory, but it was enough to fuel the spirit of resistance. People everywhere began to work together, gathering resources and creating weapons, no matter how primitive they seemed compared to the Empire's advanced machines. Back in the Empire's command center, the high-ranking officers watched with disbelief as reports came in. The humans were resisting. They were not running. Instead, they were fighting back. And worse, they were doing it in ways the Empire hadn't expected. What seemed like a simple, primitive species was suddenly showing signs of creative problem-solving and determination. Commander Rylath, one of the Empire's top military leaders, was growing frustrated. He had seen civilizations rise and fall, and never once had he encountered a species that would not surrender. He had expected humanity to bend the knee, not stand tall, and make their last stand. He ordered his fleet to begin a full-scale bombardment of the human cities, hoping that the fear of destruction would break their will. But Earth's people refused to break. In small towns and villages, across every corner of the globe, humans were finding ways to fight back. It wasn't just the military. Ordinary citizens were joining in. Farmers used old farming equipment to create makeshift weapons. Scientists worked day and night to devise new technologies that could give humanity even a small advantage. They had no other choice but to rely on their minds, their creativity, and their ability to adapt. In one remote area, a group of engineers used old, rusted warplanes from Earth's past to form a fleet. The planes were nothing compared to the Empire's advanced ships, but they were human creations, and they carried human will. With a mixture of surprise and skill, these planes launched a daring attack on one of the Empire's smaller ships, damaging its engines and causing it to lose control. The humans didn't have the power to destroy the ship, but they had shown the Empire that they weren't afraid to fight, even with outdated technology. The message spread quickly across the world. We are not afraid. And with that simple message, the humans found strength they didn't know they had. Meanwhile, the Empire began to face unexpected problems of its own. Its forces, once considered unstoppable, were now under pressure. The drones, which had been the Empire's primary weapon, were proving ineffective against the human resistance. They had been designed for total dominance, but now they were caught in a struggle they hadn't planned for. Empire ships, with their advanced technology, began experiencing glitches. For the first time, their communication systems were being hacked by human-made software. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to create confusion among the Empire's forces. The humans were clever, they were resourceful, and they were finding ways to break through the seemingly impenetrable technology of the Empire. It was true. The humans fought not only for survival, but for their families, their homes, and their way of life. The deeper the Empire pushed, the more the humans dug in their heels. The world was scared, but they would not let it fall. On the ground, the human soldiers fought fiercely. In a key battle in one of the ruined cities, a squad of human soldiers, led by Captain Marcus Hayes, managed to do the unthinkable. Outnumbered and outgunned, they used guerrilla tactics, moving quickly, hiding in the shadows, and striking when the Empire's soldiers least expected it. They ambushed a group of Empire ground troops, destroying the key communications relay. The Empire's forces were temporarily blinded, and the humans gained a precious moment of advantage. As the Empire scrambled to regain control, something incredible happened. The device that Dr. Logan and her team had worked on was ready. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. The humans had managed to develop a pulse weapon that, when activated, would disrupt the energy fields protecting the Empire's ships. It wasn't going to destroy them, but it would weaken them, making them vulnerable for just long enough to allow Earth's forces to strike back. The humans knew it was a gamble, but they had no other choice. The pulse device was launched, and for the first time since the Empire's arrival, the Empire's shields flickered. It was a brief moment of weakness, but it was enough. On the battlefield, Earth's resistance forces surged forward. Ships that had once been easy targets for the Empire's laser cannons were now able to retaliate. Human fighters, small and outdated by comparison, engaged the alien ships with renewed strength and determination. The tide of the battle was beginning to shift. It wasn't a full victory, not yet. The Empire still had far more firepower and soldiers than the humans could ever hope to match. But the balance of power had started to change. For the first time, the Empire had seen a glimmer of the human spirit, a force they couldn't easily crush. Commander Ryloth watched as his fleet's shields failed to fully protect them. His calm demeanor began to falter. "We underestimated them," he admitted to his officers. "We've only seen a glimpse of their potential. They're not like other species we've conquered." And it was true. The Empire's fleet had never faced a species that would not accept defeat. Earth's humans were proving that against all odds, they had the strength and ingenuity to turn the tables. They were no longer fighting to survive, they were fighting to win. The battle was far from over, but the Empire was starting to understand the one thing that made humans dangerous. No matter how many times they were knocked down, they always got back up. And with every setback, they only grew stronger. The Empire's ships now hovered above Earth, their sleek, imposing forms casting shadows over the battered cities below. For weeks, the humans had managed to hold their ground, surprising the invaders with their resilience and determination. But despite their efforts, the human forces were stretched thin, and it seemed like the Empire's overwhelming firepower would eventually break through. Yet, humanity was not about to surrender. The Empire had underestimated the one thing they could never truly comprehend: the power of human will. Humans had been tested throughout history, pushed to the edge, and time again, they had found ways to rise above the impossible. And now, with their planet's future hanging in the balance, they were doing it again. In the heart of what remained of one of Earth's major cities, a small group of soldiers huddled together in an underground shelter. They were exhausted, battered by days of fighting, but their resolve was unshaken. Among them was Captain Marcus Hayes, a veteran of many battles, and his team of skilled warriors. They had fought through the worst of the Empire's attacks, and yet they refused to back down. "We might not have their advanced technology, but we have something they don't," Marcus said, his voice filled with a quiet confidence. "We have heart. We have each other, and that's something they can't break." His words weren't just empty talk. They were a reminder of what humanity had always relied on in times of hardship: unity, determination, and the unyielding desire to protect their world. Meanwhile, high above Earth, the Empire's commanders were beginning to grow frustrated. Commander Rylath, still reeling from the unexpected strength of the humans, was becoming increasingly concerned. His forces had faced challenges from all corners of the galaxy, but never before had they encountered a species so unwilling to yield. "Why haven't they surrendered?" Rylath muttered to his officers. "We've destroyed their cities, crushed their armies. Yet they fight on like they have nothing to lose." It was a question that no one could answer. The humans were unlike any species the Empire had encountered before. They didn't fight for the glory of conquest, nor did they fight for wealth or power. They fought for their homes, their families, and their future. And that made them far more dangerous than the Empire had ever imagined. Back on Earth, the human resistance had become more organized. What began as small pockets of soldiers and civilians working independently had now turned into a coordinated effort. Every nation, every city, every community, no matter how small, was contributing to the war effort. Even those who were once far removed from the conflict had found ways to help. Teachers were training soldiers. Farmers were growing food for the troops. Engineers were working around the clock to develop new technologies to combat the Empire's advanced weaponry. In one hidden lab deep within the mountains, Dr. Sarah Logan and her team of scientists had made a groundbreaking discovery. They had figured out how to disrupt the Empire's advanced communication system, a critical part of their ability to coordinate their forces. It was a risky move, but if they could pull it off, it would give the humans a crucial advantage. "We don't have much time," Dr. Logan said as she worked feverishly at her console. "If we can scramble their communications, we might just be able to turn the tide of this war." With the flick of a switch, the device came to life. A pulse of energy shot through the air, targeting the Empire's communication satellites. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, the Empire's fleet began to experience a significant disruption. Their orders became garbled, their fleet movements uncoordinated. The Empire's invincible machinery was now facing a weakness, one the humans had discovered. The soldiers on the ground felt the shift immediately. With the Empire's coordination in disarray, Earth's forces began to strike back harder than ever before. It wasn't just the military anymore. Civilians, once caught in the chaos, had found their own ways to resist. Small sabotage efforts became large-scale operations, crippling the Empire's supply lines and forcing them to divert resources to repair their broken systems. In a critical battle near one of Earth's major spaceports, a group of human pilots, flying outdated but well-loved fighter jets, launched a daring assault on the Empire's flagship. With a series of well-timed maneuvers and precise strikes, they created a breach in the Empire's defenses. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was enough to send a powerful message. "We may not have their technology, but we have something they can't replicate," said one of the pilots, Captain Diana Hart. "We have the will to fight, and we will use it to the very end." Even Commander Rylath, sitting in his command center aboard his flagship, couldn't ignore the sudden shift in the battle. His forces were no longer in complete control. His frustration grew with each passing minute as reports of human successes came flooding in. This wasn't just a war for territory. It was a fight for survival, and the humans were proving they were willing to fight for every inch of their planet. "Their resolve is stronger than we anticipated," Rylath admitted, his voice tight with frustration. "These humans, they're not like any species we've encountered. We've only just begun to understand the full extent of their strength." And it was true. The Empire's immense power was no match for the fire that burned in humanity's heart. It wasn't about advanced technology, mighty fleets, or superweapons. It was about something far more important, something that could never be calculated or predicted: the human spirit. As the tide of battle slowly began to shift, Earth's defenders understood that this was far from the end. They had only just begun to show the Empire that humanity was a force to be reckoned with, and they would never stop fighting for their home. The skies above Earth were dark, filled with the cold shadows of the Empire's warships. For weeks, humanity had fought with everything it had, using every available resource, every ounce of ingenuity. It had been an impossible battle from the start, but the human spirit had proven to be a force the Empire had never anticipated. Commander Rylath, seated on the command deck of his flagship, watched the reports come in. The Empire's forces were still overwhelming in number and power, yet they were faltering. His fleet, once confident and all-powerful, was now facing the first serious setback it had ever known. He had thought humanity would crumble after the initial strikes, but instead they had fought back with a fire he had never expected. "They're not stopping," Rylath muttered. "How are they still fighting?" The Empire's strategy had been simple: destroy Earth's defenses, crush any resistance, and then take control. But what they hadn't counted on was the humans' refusal to accept defeat. The longer the battle continued, the clearer it became that this was more than just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the soul of the planet. Down on the ground, Earth's defenders had learned to fight not just with weapons, but with their hearts. Small victories had turned the tide. The Empire's soldiers, trained for years to conquer without mercy, were starting to feel the pressure. Their once great war machine was showing signs of wear. Systems were down. Supplies were low. Morale was in decline. In the thick of it, Captain Marcus Hayes stood alongside his squad in what remained of a military base. The walls around them were cracked, the air thick with dust, but their determination was as strong as ever. "This is it," Marcus said, his voice steady. "We either win today or we fight on tomorrow. It doesn't matter. We'll never stop." His squad nodded, each of them exhausted, each of them marked by the scars of battle. But their eyes were filled with the same resolve. They had seen their cities destroyed, their families lost, but they had not given up, and they never would. Meanwhile, Dr. Sarah Logan's team had made another breakthrough. After months of work, they had developed a new weapon, one that could directly target the core systems of the Empire's ships. It wasn't perfect, but it was their best chance at crippling the invaders. The device had the potential to cause a massive chain reaction within the Empire's fleet if they could just get close enough to deploy it. "We can do this," Dr. Logan said as she and her team prepared to launch the weapon. "This might be our last chance to turn things around. Let's make it count." The humans had always been resourceful. They didn't have the Empire's vast fleets or advanced technology, but they had the ability to adapt quickly, to think on their feet. They had taken the Empire's weapons, analyzed them, and turned them against their enemies. They had learned to fight using every advantage, no matter how small. As the weapon was deployed, the humans held their breath. It wasn't just a matter of hitting the Empire's ships. They had to get past the Empire's powerful shields, navigate through the relentless waves of enemy fighters, and then strike at the heart of the Empire's fleet. The device activated. A wave of energy shot through the air, targeting the Empire's flagship, sending a shockwave through its systems. For a brief moment, the Empire's forces were stunned. Communications went dark, and the once impenetrable shields faltered. The humans had made their move, and it was working. On the battlefield, Earth's fighters took full advantage of the disruption. The Empire's fleet, now vulnerable, was targeted by a coordinated assault from the human resistance. Fighter jets, once outmatched, now held the upper hand. Small, quick, and agile, they darted in and out of the Empire's larger ships, striking at key points with precision. "We've got them on the ropes," Captain Diana Hart called out, her voice crackling through the comms. "Keep it up. This is our moment." The Empire's flagship, once so powerful, was now struggling. A direct hit to its power core sent tremors throughout the entire fleet. Rylath's face tightened as he watched the damage unfold. "No, this can't be happening," Rylath growled, slamming his fist on the console. "Activate emergency protocols. Now." But it was too late. The damage had been done. The Empire's forces were reeling, their ships unable to function at full capacity. The humans, despite their limited resources, had managed to strike a decisive blow. Back on the ground, Marcus and his team were witnessing the turning point. The enemy's forces, once so overwhelming, were now disorganized and retreating. The humans had made their stand, and it was working. But this victory wasn't just a result of technology or tactics. It was because of the unshakable will of the people fighting for their planet. "Keep pushing forward," Marcus shouted. "They're breaking. This is our time." The fight wasn't over, but for the first time in the war, it seemed like humanity had the upper hand. The Empire had underestimated them, and now they were paying the price. The humans had proven that they could not be crushed, no matter how great the odds. They fought not just for their survival, but for their right to live freely, for their right to protect the world they had built. Commander Rylath sat in his command center, his face pale as the reports came in. "This is not the end," he whispered. "This is only the beginning." For the humans, it was a moment of triumph. The Empire had learned a harsh lesson. Never underestimate the strength of a species willing to fight for everything they hold dear. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, the humans had shown they were capable of winning this war, and they would fight until the very last breath to ensure their planet was free. The battle had reached its critical point. Humanity had dealt a severe blow to the Empire, but the war was far from over. The skies above Earth remained filled with the shadows of the Empire's warships, their massive forms looming like a constant reminder of the challenge that lay ahead. Yet there was a new sense of hope among Earth's defenders. The Empire's overwhelming power had been shaken, and the humans had shown that they could stand strong against the odds. Commander Rylath, still reeling from the shock of the humans' resilience, paced nervously in his flagship's command center. The reports coming in were less than promising. Despite the Empire's advanced weaponry, the humans had found ways to exploit weaknesses, using their limited resources in creative and unpredictable ways. It was clear that Earth's defenders were not going to give up easily. "We underestimated them," Rylath muttered to himself, his gaze fixed on the screens before him. "These humans, they're unlike any species we've faced before. They fight for more than just survival." Indeed, the humans had proven to be a force to be reckoned with. Each small victory had sparked another, each successful counterattack reinforcing their determination. As the humans learned from each encounter, their tactics became sharper and more effective. They were no longer just fighting for their homes, they were fighting for their future. In the heart of Earth's last major stronghold, a large underground bunker where humanity's leaders had gathered, the atmosphere was tense. Marcus Hayes stood before a large map, his team gathered around him. The resistance had grown stronger with each passing day, but there was still so much to be done. "We've learned their tactics, and we've hit them hard," Marcus said, his voice steady but filled with determination. "But we're running out of time. The Empire will regroup. They'll come at us harder, and we need to be ready." The leaders had already made their plans. Earth's remaining military forces, united under a single banner, were preparing for one final push, a push that would decide the fate of the planet. But this time, they wouldn't rely on conventional tactics alone. Humanity had learned to adapt, to fight with everything they had, and now they had developed a new strategy to turn the tide. Dr. Sarah Logan and her team had worked tirelessly on a new technology, one that could give humanity the advantage they so desperately needed. They had discovered a way to interfere with the Empire's communication systems on a much larger scale. If they could manage to disable the Empire's fleet-wide communications, it would leave the invaders in disarray, unable to coordinate their attacks. The success of this mission could be the turning point they had been waiting for. "It's a risky move," Dr. Logan said, looking over the data on her console. "But it's our best shot. If we can disable their fleet's communication network, we can break their coordination. They won't be able to respond to our attacks, and that's when we strike." Marcus nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. We've been risking everything since day one. If this works, it could be the final blow we need to send them packing. But if it doesn't, we won't think about if it doesn't. Diana Hart, the skilled pilot and leader of Earth's fighter forces, interrupted. We've made it this far, and we're not stopping now. The plan was set into motion. Earth's most trusted pilots and soldiers would make their way to key points in the Empire's fleet, preparing to strike when the time was right. Dr. Logan and her team worked quickly to launch the disruptor, a device designed to jam the Empire's communication systems. As the device was deployed, tension filled the air. Every person involved knew that their survival depended on the success of this mission. The moment of truth arrived. In space, the Empire's fleet was still large, powerful, and seemingly unbeatable. The ships hovered like predators, waiting for the next move. But what the Empire did not know was that humanity had already made its move. The disruptor activated, sending a pulse of energy through the Empire's communication channels. For a brief moment, there was silence. Then, chaos. The Empire's fleet, which had once moved with precision and coordination, suddenly faltered. Orders from Rylath's command center were lost in the static. The fleet's once unified assault fractured as commanders scrambled to regain control. The humans had done it. They had disrupted the Empire's communications, and now the invaders were left in disarray. Now's our chance, Marcus shouted as he and his squad rushed to the front lines. This is the opening we've been waiting for. Get ready to strike. The resistance fighters launched their attack with everything they had. Fighters streaked across the sky, their weapons flashing as they engaged the Empire's disoriented forces. The Empire's once imposing warships, caught off guard and unable to communicate effectively, were now vulnerable. In the midst of the chaos, Captain Diana Hart led a squadron of human pilots, weaving in and out of the Empire's ships, targeting weak spots with incredible precision. The Empire's ships were large and powerful, but they were not built to handle this level of unpredictability. The human pilots used their agility to outmaneuver the Empire's sluggish ships, striking again and again. Back on Earth, the ground forces pushed forward, taking advantage of the chaos above. Soldiers moved swiftly, reclaiming lost territory and making their way toward key locations. The Empire's defensive lines were beginning to collapse, and the human forces were determined to keep up the pressure. Even as the humans fought, they knew this was just one battle in a much larger war. The Empire was still a formidable foe, but Earth's resistance had proven something that no one could ignore. They had shown that humanity would never give up, never back down. And if there was one thing the Empire had learned, it was that the human spirit was not something they could easily crush. As the battle raged on, the humans remained resolute. Their planet, their future, and their freedom were at stake, and they would fight for every moment they had. The war had reached its most intense moment yet. Earth, once a planet with no idea of what lay beyond its atmosphere, now stood at the center of a conflict that would decide the fate of not only humanity but the entire galaxy. The Empire, having underestimated humanity's strength, was now at a breaking point. But the final battle was coming, and this time, there would be no turning back. Commander Rylath's hands trembled as he stared at the holographic map in front of him. The human resistance had dealt a severe blow to the Empire's forces, but they had not yet won. His fleet had been shattered by the humans' unexpected tactics, and his troops were in disarray. Still, he could not afford to admit defeat. He had led the Empire's forces for years, and he had no intention of failing now. "We need to reassert control," Rylath said firmly, addressing his officers in the command center. "We cannot let these humans push us back any further. Their tactics are unpredictable, but we can still crush them." But the officers were starting to look uncertain. They had seen the humans in action, how they had fought back despite overwhelming odds, how they had adapted and changed their strategies to stay one step ahead. The humans were not like the other species they had conquered. They were more resilient, more creative, and more determined. Rylath's words fell on hesitant ears, and for the first time, He realized the cracks forming within his own ranks. Back on Earth, Marcus Hayes stood with his team in the heart of the human stronghold, the atmosphere tense. The last few days had been a whirlwind of strategic meetings, counterattacks, and planning. But now, the time had come for the final push. They had seen the cracks in the Empire's forces, and they knew this was their chance to end the war. "This is it," Marcus said, his voice resolute as he addressed the gathered commanders. "We've come this far. We know how to fight them. And now we're going to finish it. We can win this. We just have to stay focused." Around him, the human leaders nodded in agreement. They had fought together for months, and despite the destruction they had witnessed, there was a fire in their hearts. They were determined to protect their world, their families, and their future. Dr. Sarah Logan, who had been working with a team of engineers to develop new weapons and technology, stepped forward. "We've finished upgrading the disruptor system. This time, we can target their fleet's power core directly. If we hit them in the heart, they won't be able to recover. It's a long shot, but it's our best chance." Marcus turned to Diana Hart, the skilled pilot who had led countless missions against the Empire's ships. "We'll need you to lead the charge. If we can't break through their defenses, everything we've done so far will be for nothing." Diana nodded, a determined look on her face. "I got this. Let's show them what we're made of." The resistance forces, made up of soldiers, pilots, and engineers, were ready for the final battle. As the fleet of human ships prepared for launch, a strange calm washed over them. They knew the risks, but they also knew that failure was not an option. Earth was their home, and they would fight with everything they had to defend it. The first wave of human fighters launched into the atmosphere, soaring into space with unmatched precision. The Empire's fleet, still reeling from the earlier disruptions, was not fully prepared for the assault. The Empire's warships, massive and powerful, were now scattered and vulnerable, their communications still crippled by the earlier attack. The humans knew this was their moment. Diana's squadron moved swiftly, darting through the void of space, targeting key points in the Empire's ships. The human pilots were agile and precise, weaving in and out of the larger, slower Empire vessels. They knew the Empire's ships were built for brute force, but their size made them easy targets for skilled pilots who could outmaneuver them. Back on the ground, Earth's ground forces pushed forward, reclaiming territory lost during the Empire's earlier invasion. Every inch of land gained was a victory, every stronghold retaken a symbol of human resilience. The soldiers fought with unmatched courage, using everything at their disposal: advanced weaponry, guerrilla tactics, and even hand-to-hand combat when necessary. As the battle in space raged on, Commander Rylath's fleet struggled to regain control. The Empire's once dominant position had been shaken to its core. Rylath ordered his forces to regroup, but the damage had already been done. The Empire's fleet was no longer a unified force. It was a collection of disjointed ships, each struggling to act on its own. The final strike came when Marcus and his team infiltrated the Empire's command ship, the heart of the fleet. It was heavily guarded, but the humans had a plan. Using their knowledge of the Empire's tactics, they bypassed the defenses and planted explosives inside the command center. Rylath's eyes widened in disbelief as his flagship began to crumble under the human attack. The shockwave from the explosion rippled through the Empire's fleet. Without their command ship, the remaining Empire vessels were left vulnerable. Diana's squadron made the final push, targeting the power cores of the remaining warships. One by one, the massive ships began to fall, their once imposing forms now crumbling into debris. As the last Empire vessel exploded in a brilliant flash of light, the humans had won. The Empire's forces were shattered, and Earth had survived. Humanity had shown the galaxy what they were capable of: determination, resilience, and the will to protect their home at all costs. Marcus stood at the edge of the battlefield, watching as the smoke cleared. Earth was safe for now. But he knew that the victory was not just for them. It was a message to every species in the galaxy. Humanity would never back down, and the galaxy would know that, From this day forward, Earth would stand strong.